Prostitution is only illegal when it's penis-vagina intercourse. Oral sex and anal sex for money is legal there. That actually resulted in a certain legitimate service there that I found to be interesting. Something they call sumata.
You found it to be interesting? Do you get prostitutes?
Are you a prostitute?
Excuse me?
You just asked me if I was a John, so I figured it was just as appropriate to ask you if you were a prostitute.
You said you liked a certain prostitution service there.
I just find it fascinating. There are some things in the sex industry that are almost unheard of in our Western world, such as the girlfriend renting services in Thailand and some other countries, where rather than getting a prostitute for a quick session, you can have a girlfriend for a week or so.
I still don't think sex for money is right. What child would aspire to be a prostitute or a John? Or even a child who is just old enough to understand that you shouldn't have to pay for love.
It is sex they're buying, not love. I couldn't think of a child who would aspire for such a thing either. But then again, who aspires to have a career that pays minimum wage? Who aspires to flip burgers or clean septic tanks their whole life? The bottom line is life does not always happen as we plan. Not everyone can be as successful as they once dreamed. It would not work because there must be a lower class in order for there to be a middle and upper. And, as I said earlier, it is normal to hate your job. Everyone should encourage each other to pursue the life they want.
Prostitutes should be encouraged to change.
Yes, for the ones that do not want it, and I doubt many of them plan to make it a career. To add to the argument that it is a choice, it depends on how you look at what a choice is. Let's say there is a guy named Daniel. Daniel's in high school, gets average grades, but he's a stoner. He loves to smoke pot. He knows it will hurt his ability to learn, because he can feel the effects, but he still does it. Now let's say Daniel turned 18 and is on his own. He's got a job flipping burgers. Now let's say he never stopped smoking pot. He tried college but he couldn't concentrate and dropped out. He always aspired for something better, but there was always something holding him back. And he was fully aware he could think more clearly and be able to excel in college if he quit smoking pot, but he chose not to kick the habit. Not even for a little while to finish school. 20 years pass and he still works there. In your opinion, was having a life of poverty a choice?
It wasn't a conscious choice. He put himself in that situation.
Exactly. Much like many prostitutes. I'm not saying they all choose, and some are coerced, but for many, it is a choice, whether direct or indirect. And many people who are in Daniel's shoes, one way or another, make up excuses to tell others. Who would admit to willfully failing in life? Did you know that in some of the families in some poor countries, where a single salary brought in by the father is not enough, sometimes the daughter in the household will work as a prostitute to help bring in money to support the family, and the family encourages her and is grateful, and still accept her as their daughter?
That is horrible. You don't consider that coercion?
No, it is a choice. It is a reality that we all have to live with. Not all countries can afford to allow all their workers to make enough to support a family. And it's important to realize that some prostitutes make just enough to live, and some prostitutes make thousands of dollars a day.
Do you think that's fair?
Of course it's not fair. When it comes to the sex industry, it is natural the good-looking women are going to make the bigger money. Also it matters in what country they're in, as it can be much more profitable in this country than a poorer one. A Vietnam veteran once described to me a brothel he went to in Germany. He mentioned the cheapest women were on the bottom floor, and each floor he went up, the women got better looking and more pricey. The top floor had the most beautiful and expensive women of the bunch. He also mentioned they offered specific fetishes that were pricey, like a very old woman or a woman who weighs 500 pounds.
Beauty can also be a curse for many women.
That is definitely true. It seems to have its rewards as well. But people are allowed to be as shallow as they want to be when it comes to relationships and sex, so of course it's going to apply to prostitution. Models, including underwear, lingerie, swimsuit, and even women who work in restaurants like Hooters, are hired based nearly entirely on their looks.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and everyone is beautiful to someone. I wonder why many of these ideas are not mentioned when other people talk about the subject.
A lot of people fear giving their personal opinion. I've always figured more men are pro-prostitution than women since men are the primary customers of the industry. People must understand though that not all prostitutes are women and not all Johns are men. When statistics are gathered about the number of women in the world who are prostitutes, I wonder if transgender women are included in that number. When people argue that prostitution is oppressive to women, they don't usually mention there are many transgender women prostitutes. Since they are technically men, then their claims should be that it's oppressive to men as well. Not to mention, of course, normal male prostitutes, but usually, not always, their customers are men too.
I read somewhere that anywhere from 7% to 35% of men have solicited prostitution, depending on the country they live in. I don't know how exact statistics could be known with something like that, considering many lie. It is like looking at a statistic that says what percentage of high school teens are virgins. So many high school students lie about that.
Yes, it is good to be critical of statistics because people have a tendency to make them up or exaggerate. Either way, it is lying. I believe the reason many of points I made are not presented is because many people try and be biased in order to express their opinion and try and get people to think like them. Like someone who claims it is never a choice. Or for a person to point the finger at men, claiming they are completely responsible. I am a very liberal and open-minded person. I look at the facts from both sides, and I consider them when making my opinion. I don't like it when people force or trick their will on others, which, unfortunately, the world is full of people like that. It is pathetic when someone has to lie in order to convince someone of their argument. It proves some form of ignorance, possibly because they are not totally confident of their own argument, and sometimes people simply adhere to the opinion of a group.
Well, I believe you've covered all the basic points for pro-legalization.
There is a huge plus to legalizing and regulating it that I did not mention. This puts things over the top. Many government resources are used in trying to stop prostitution, including cops, lawyers, prosecutors, judges, jails, guards, probation officers, crime victim compensation programs, and so on. This costs a huge amount of money. With legalization, not only will the taxes we spend no longer be wasted on this, but a huge profit would be gained. New taxes would be collected not only on the legitimate sales transactions between prostitutes and Johns, but the pimps, security, drivers, and everyone else working the sex industry, including the prostitutes, are to pay income tax every year. On top of that, there will be business tax. Not to mention the unemployment rate would go down greatly. It will give the economy a nice boost, which is something this country needs. And some of the profits collected should fund programs to counsel and assist prostitutes who ask for help in quitting.
I suppose I can think of it as a necessary evil then.
During part of the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church condoned prostitution as a necessary evil. I believe there are certain things that are here to stay, and rather than trying to get rid of them, we should respect each other's hobbies if it doesn't hurt anyone else. Rather than forcing our will on someone, such as taking away a person's right to be married based on something that's no one's business but their own.
Well, it was good talking to you about this. I'd like to hear your opinion on some other controversial subjects some other time. I got to go now. Talk to you later, Michael.
Later, Sarah. See you in class next week.